Hello, hello, hello. How are you guys doing today? Okay, so this is kind of a video that I didn't really think that I was going to make. I've kind of taken a hiatus from making Fox Hollow Farm videos over here. For those of you that do not know, I'm gonna give you a very, very quick history lesson about my history with the Fox Hollow Farms case, Herb Baumeister, and all that kind of stuff. Because at this point, I've probably made 10 videos on this channel. I went out to Fox Hollow Farm. It's my #1 vlog on my vlog channel, Peter Vlogs, where I went out there and I did a paranormal investigation. I've reacted to the recent Hulu documentary on my Peter Watches TV channel. I have worked with the investigators and I've talked to people behind the scenes. I know so much about this case. I know about the ongoing investigation. I just know so much about this case at this point. I know all the, the players involved in it. And I mean, not personally, but I mean, I know the stories. And I've been following this case, since like its inception. And so it's always been very, very interesting to me. For those of you that have never watched one of my videos about Fox Hollow Farms before, I live in Indianapolis, Indiana. Fox Hollow Farm, which was the home of Herb Baumeister, the serial killer, that it's supposedly the number of gay men that he killed in Indianapolis was supposedly 26 to 29. Now it's come out and they're saying that the number could be 40 to 50, something like that. He is also alleged to be the I-70 killer, so that would even add more victims to that number. And if you've watched any of my videos, then you know that my focus has always been on the story of the victims and getting the story of the victims out there and reuniting the victims' remains with their family members and allowing their family members to have closure. I've shared a lot on here about how at the time that Herb Baumeister was, killing men in Indianapolis, whether it was him alone or whether it was a group of other people, which I'm not going to get into the speculation of all of that in this video because that's not the purpose of this video, but was at the time that I was actually out at bars, drinking heavily, using drugs. I got sober December 17th of 1994. And have been sober ever since. And so after that, I wasn't going out towards the end, right before Herb Baumeister took his own life in Canada, which I believe it was in 1996. And so I can remember watching a documentary. Well, I think it was on A&E. I believe it was the first documentary. A&E has done two documentaries, and it was on Herb Baumeister, and it was interviewing his wife. It was one of the only interviews that his wife Julie has ever done. She's done a few, but not many. And so I remember watching it with my roommate, and we were talking about how like I could have been a victim and things like that. So anyway, because I kind of matched a little bit of the profile of the people that he was looking for, and we just kind of talked about it. So years later, I just kind of shared the story in a video and talked about it and just speculated about it. And so then that went to one video, went to another. People reached out to me to do this paranormal investigation. So I went out there and did that with my friends Melissa and Aaron. And then after that, I continue to make videos, and so it's just been this ongoing interest that I've had in this case. I know a lot about this case, okay? So people reach out to me all the time. This has really gotten traction since the Hulu documentary came out. So if you don't know what I'm talking about, there's a new Hulu documentary that came out about 2 months ago. It's fantastically done. Fantastically done. And it's called Fox Hollow Farm, Playground of a Serial Killer. It's just really, really well done. And in it, they implicate the one remaining survivor, and he comes out at the end of it and talks about how he was also dating Herb Baumeister, and he shares all this stuff in there, but there's a lot that he holds back too. And in all honesty, it has not put him in a great light. A lot of people are speculating about his involvement with the murders and his involvement with this. And so the documentary, like a lot of true crime documentaries do, they open up to a lot of conspiracy and speculation. The one thing about this case that's interesting is there has always been a lot of paranormal conspiracy about this case. There's always been this idea that Fox Hollow Farm is haunted and that the victims still haunt the place, that Herb Baumeister might even haunt the place. When we went out there for the paranormal investigation, we were told that the closet, his bedroom closet, is like a vortex to hell, and that, like demons would come in and out of there and take over his body. This was before there was like really any speculation that was a group of people. That's the other part of this. So since I started making my videos, I've had, I can't even tell you at this time, so many people that have come to me and shared their stories with me. All of those I have passed over to the investigators. I have talked to Jeff Jellison, the lead investigator. Well, he's the coroner. He's not the investigator of this case, but he's the coroner in Westfield, Hamilton County. I know this area very, very well. I probably grew up, like my house was probably 10 or 15 minute drive from where Fox Hollow Farm is. I went to Carmel High School, graduated in 1990. It's in the same county that Westfield is in. My cousin lives in Westfield, my cousin Caroline. She lives probably 5 minutes from Fox Hollow Farm. My mother-in-law used to live in Westfield. She probably lived 5 minutes from Fox Hollow Farm. I know that area very, very well. Her Baumeister's ex-wife, Julie, she lives literally walking distance from my house right now. His parents and where he grew up is literally walking, shorter than where she is, walking distance right down the road. One of my neighbors, this is actually on my vlog not too long ago, she walked by with her husband and we were talking about it. It's all on my vlog, and she was like, yeah, we should sit down and do an interview. She used to work with his wife, and so, you know, I've had neighbors of mine that when we were at the pool would say, oh, he coached my kids in softball, he was always strange. A lot of people know Herb Baumeister in this area. A lot of people knew him from the Save-A-Lot stores. So Herb Baumeister had a wife, his wife Julie, and they had 3 children. And so a lot of people knew their kids, and a lot of people still know their kids today in Indianapolis and know who they are. They have all of them, I believe. His ex-wife has decided to take her maiden name, and I believe like 2 of the children, it's a son and two daughters, and I believe that the 2 daughters, and I do not believe that the family is responsible for the acts of Herb Baumeister. There's no evidence at this point that is pointing in the direction that they have any involvement in it whatsoever. Mark Goodyear, who's in the documentary, he tries to indirectly you know, say that Julie's complicit, that she knew what was going on. I have talked to so many people that know Julie Baumeister and have said that she just is like, it's just like this whole thing has taken such a toll on her, and that, I mean, I think on the outside looking in, you know, like, her son brought to her a skeleton that he found in the woods, and her husband said, oh, that's, you know, my dad, his dad was a doctor, and things like that, and so she believed it at the time, and she didn't really know what was going on. I don't know that we know the involvement of what Julie knew at that time, but there's no evidence pointing to the fact that she was involved in it. In fact, they had a lake house at Lake Maxinkuckee in Indiana, which is a really, I mean, like, people that have lake homes at Lake Maxinkuckee, I mean, they're very nice homes. And, I mean, we used to joke growing up, my cousin Caroline and I, because we had a lot of family friends that had, you know, generationally, like, owned homes on Lake Maxinkuckee, and also, like, Wawasee and things like that. And we would be like, we need to have, like, why can't our families have a lake house and stuff like that? So anyway, so she was always out of town when all this occurred, and that's been documented. So I don't know what Julie's involvement is, but what I've heard from other people is that Julie just wanted to be left out of it. And I know people that know their kids as well, that they just don't want any association with it whatsoever. So anyway, that's kind of where we're at today. I do know that the coroner, Jeff Jellison, who is in the documentary, is looking into it. I have spoken to him. He's a really, really nice guy. And I also know that anybody that reached out to him, his response would kind of be like, he actually reached out to me to talk to me because he had seen my video doing the coverage of the documentary, and talking about how people had reached out to me with information. I passed all that information on to him. I passed any information on that people have given to me, whether they are families of victims or whether they are people that have, you know, information. I passed all that information on to anybody involved that's working actively on the case. But I also know that Jeff Jellison is a nice enough guy that if somebody said, I think a ghost came down and, you know, did this and whatever, that he'd be like, okay, thank you, I'll forward that information to the investigators or law enforcement. I just know he's just a really decent guy, and I think that that's probably what he would say. So when the documentary came out, and there's actually, and I think they just aired it again, WRTV in Indianapolis, a couple years before the documentary, did a fantastic, like, hour-long presentation documentary that highlighted 3 of the victims' families that were actually in the Hulu documentary. If you haven't seen the Hulu documentary, I would highly, highly, highly encourage you to watch it. It's done from a very humane point of view. It's done out of respect for the victims. It's done out of respect for the families of the victims. I think it gives a really conclusive, it's not just a retelling of the story. It tells the story, but then it also adds new nuances to it that we never knew before. We hear an interview from the one remaining survivor that supposedly was a survivor, and all these years has proclaimed that he was a survivor, now come out and say that he was the boyfriend of Herb Baumeister and that he spoke to him even the day before he fled to Canada and things like that, or the day that he fled to Canada and things like that. So it's interesting that new things are coming out about it. I've always kind of had this weird, strange feeling that this case would always be solved. And I will tell you that my belief is that it was a group of people. I've heard so many stories from people that are so consistent that I do not believe that Herb Baumeister was acting alone. I've said that in previous videos now. There's been enough information that has come through from other people, come through me, and that I passed on to law enforcement that it's so obvious that it couldn't have just been Herb Baumeister at this point. But if you all want me to make that video, talking about what my belief systems are on that, I have my belief systems, what my beliefs are about the case or my speculations, I can do that. I haven't made a video on this for a while because, in all honesty, to talk about it a lot and to be as interested and intrigued with this case as I have been, it's very dark. And so I was like, at the time that I made my last video, I was like, I need to take a break from this for a little bit. So, but after the documentary came out, it was kind of going crazy on TikTok. Like, a lot of people were sending me TikToks after TikTok after TikTok from all these different people covering it, and can you believe this? And, there are all these memes of Mark Goodyear's the one remaining victim or survivor. And so that's now saying that he was his boyfriend and that Julie knew. So there's all these memes of Mark Goodyear going around. There's all these, gifs of Mark Goodyear, and there was a lot of clips from the documentary, and it just kind of took off on TikTok. And in all honesty, my reaction to it was, I was really happy, I was really, really happy that people were finally talking about this case. People were sending me, I can't remember, I think his name's Josh, Kendall Ray's husband has a podcast. I watched the whole podcast. I thought it was well done. I thought it was a retelling, basically, of the documentary, but I thought it was well done. I thought they paid honor to the victims. I thought that he did a really nice job on it. And people were like, what do you think about it? And because people were sending it to me like, thank God somebody's finally talking about it. I was like, there's a few of us that have been talking about it for a long time, but that being said, I don't really care about all that. I just want this case to get a lot of attention. One of the things that has been so bizarre to me through the years with all the true crime channels, with all the true crime podcasts, is that this case that literally took 29 to 60, we know now, gay men from an extremely conservative area, Indianapolis, Indiana, in the early 90s. Okay, I lived it. Part of the issue was that there was extreme homophobia against the gay community of Indianapolis within the police force at that time and within law enforcement. And so a lot of the people in the community were really asking, like, could we please, like, why is none of this attention being paid to an entire community, And the documentary does a really great job of focusing on that. And I just want to say, I respect the hell out of the fact that that documentary did that, because I think it told a lot of the stories that haven't really ever been told about how the community was affected. And so it's not only that it's this ongoing true crime serial killer case that's never been solved, it also is very timely because it's talking about the fact that an entire community, that this part of this continued to happen because nobody was taking these claims seriously. When we were going out to gay bars and they were putting up signs of missing people and warning us to let somebody know before we went home with somebody, to let our friends know who we were going home with to protect our safety. It was very much, anyway, and they show that in the documentary. And so what's interesting to me is that it's very timely, okay, as today, the LGBTQI plus community is again underneath a lot of scrutiny and a lot of judgment that this could happen again. And I think that that's the importance of talking about this story now. But one of the things that's been interesting to me all the years since I made my very first Fox Hollow Farms video, which was probably in 2016 or 2017, when I started on YouTube, is that there really hasn't been a lot of attention on this case. There have been like 2 or 3 books written about it, and the books are horrible. And one of them is co-written by the owner of Fox Hollow Farms. In fact, when we were out there, he told us that one of the reasons why they bought the house was because they wanted to do a documentary and write a book about it. He told us that. And so it doesn't surprise me that the book came out. We actually read the book I have a true crime book club that I run with my really good friend Mel, and we read the book. The book is very strange and not very well done. So anyway, we read the book. There's just not been a lot of attention on this case. So I am elated that TikTok is blowing up over this, that podcasters are talking about it, because I think when you remove yourself from the situation, this case is a case that needs that attention so that the victims and their families can get closure to it. And that the victims can be honored and their families can finally know what happened to their loved ones. That's the most important thing about this whole story. I don't really care how it gets attention, okay? But people have been sending me for the last, since the documentary came out, TikToks about this, TikToks about that. For those of you that don't know, I don't get very active on TikTok. I just don't go over there. My husband loves it, but I don't, I'm not on TikTok rolling through very often and stuff like that. So one of the TikToks that people keep on sending me is from this guy. And his name is, I just went out of it. His name is Birdie, okay? And he has done this is part 10, and I think it's the newest part, on Fox Hollow Farms after the documentary, and the owner of Fox Hollow Farms, who is Rob Graves, okay? And people keep on sending this to me. And so it was interesting because when they sent it to me at first, I was like, what? And I will tell you this, okay? I love true crime. I love conspiracies. I love conspiracies about true crime. My issue is when the conspiracies stand in the way of finding the truth, okay? That's what my issue is. So I will say that for 2 months now, people have been sending these to me, and they've been asking me to respond to it. So I think it was last night, I literally got 3 direct messages from people on his newest TikTok asking me what I thought about this. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna make this video. Because people have been asking me what I think about this guy and what I think about his TikToks for a long time. I'm not gonna include his TikToks over here, but I will link his name in the comment section below if you guys wanna go watch him. So his name is Birdie. I'll be honest with you, when you go to his channel, on TikTok, do we call it a channel? I don't know. He has 60,000 followers and 1.3 million likes. And at the top of it, he has Brian Laundrie Alive, the Idaho 4 case, Fox Hollow case, narrative warfare, cover-up files. So he covers a lot of true crime. And I actually really like his TikToks, and I really like his coverage of it. I think he would be really fun to sit and talk to about true crime, off video, or maybe even on video, I don't know, just to talk to him and be like, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? Blah, 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 whatever. But, so, you know what? I'm going to link your TikTok below. Birdie, I don't know you, but if you want to, sit down and do a collaboration, we can talk about all you want to talk about, your conspiracies about all this, all you want. That would be a fun video to do. I don't really do collaborations anymore, but that might be a fun collaboration to do. So anyway, I really like his voice on it. I think he has a really great personality for talking about true crime. And for me, I get bored very quickly with how certain things are done. And so when I started watching his TikToks, I was like, oh, I really like this guy. He's really entertaining. But his whole concept, okay, is that Herb Baumeister died in 1996. He took his own life in Canada, all right? And that Rob Graves later bought a Fox Hollow Farm, all right? And that he believes that Rob Graves, the current owner of Fox Hollow Farms, is actually Herb Baumeister. He's done layovers of their faces, and he said that they look identical. He's gone in his latest TikTok that he put up about it, he said that Rob Graves there's no paper trail on him before 1996, indicating that that there's no possible, who was Rob Graves before 1996, and that that Herb Baumeister specifically picked this name because it comes from this book and blah, blah, blah. Now listen, okay? I love to watch true crime. I love to watch conspiracy theories about true crime. I think it's really interesting to have these conversations. So I will say that. And I watch the TikToks, okay? I enjoyed his TikToks. The thing is, there's absolutely no merit or truth to his TikToks whatsoever. There's no truth whatsoever that Herb Baumeister didn't actually die, and that he took over took the name Rob Graves, and that he's actually Rob Graves in disguise. There's no truth to it whatsoever. On several reasons, okay? And if you live in Indianapolis and you know anything about this case and you've talked to anybody about this case, Indianapolis is a small town, okay? So let me explain to you kind of how Indianapolis is, first of all. Indianapolis is a small metropolitan city, okay? It's not huge. It's not like Chicago or anything like that. It's a small metropolitan city. Outside of that, we have the north side, the south side, the east side, and the west side, okay? Anybody in Indianapolis will say, I'm either from Indianapolis, which is the metro area, or they will say to you, I'm from the north side, or I'm from the south side, I'm from the east side, or I'm from the west side. If you know anybody, I'm from the north side, okay, which is Hamilton County, so which is where Fox Hollow Farms is. In Hamilton County, okay, there's Westfield, there's Carmel, there's Fishers, there's Noblesville. So within there, if you say to somebody, oh, where did you go to high school? And they said Noblesville High School, you're gonna know 10 people that went to Noblesville High School and be like, oh, did you know so-and-so? This is how people talk in Indiana, okay? If you went to Westfield, like my brother-in-law graduated from Westfield. Just the other day when I was on my vlog, somebody walked by and he and his wife were pushing a baby like 2 weeks before. And he's like, oh, are you doing a podcast? I said, no, I'm vlogging. He goes, what's your channel? And he goes, I'm going to watch your videos. Give me a shout out, whatever. So then like the next week or week after, he's walking by. This is all my vlog, so factually proven. And he walked by and he goes, oh my God, he goes, I watched your vlog. And he goes, and I looked you up. And he goes, I knew your husband on your Instagram looked familiar to me. He said, I was a fraternity brother of your brother-in-law's, my brother-in-law Juan, who I call Fufu, and Alex calls Fufu. Anyway, my brother-in-law Juan Carlos, who lives in San Diego with his wife Jessie. And I said, oh, you were a Sigma Chi at Ball State. And he goes, yeah. And he goes, I said, oh, I'll tell Juan that you said hi. And so I texted Fufu right after that, and I said, this guy walked by, blah, 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 whatever. He knew immediately who it was. He was like, oh, it's so-and-so. And so I saw the guy, and I was like, oh, like he said, he goes, yeah, that's my, because he said his first name in the video or whatever. He goes, oh, it's so-and-so. So he knew him. And I mean, Juan was like, that's my bro. Like, I love him, blah, blah, blah. Indianapolis is small, okay? When my mom and I would go to the grocery store, my mom would say, like, I can remember grocery stores with my mom and my aunt, dinners, things like that. My mom and my aunt graduated from Broad Ripple High School, okay? Which no longer exists as a high school. But it's centrally located in Indianapolis. And so when my mom, at that time, there were only like 4 or 5 major high schools and a lot of private schools. So my mom would say like, oh, there's Judy Smith. She graduated from Ladywood in 60 and she was a Delta Chi at IU. I knew her because I was a Pi Phi, and then she married so-and-so, but she'd always call her like by her full name. She'd say that's like Judy Smith Johnson, and her maiden name would be Judy Smith. My aunt would do the same thing. Indianapolis is small. So when you talk about people, you know these people, okay? Before I ever went out to Fox Hollow Farm, my friend Melissa already knew Rob Graves. I mean, she doesn't know him personally, but she knew of him. He's a car salesman here in town, okay? A lot of people know Rob Graves. A lot of people know Rob Graves from high school, okay? And so when I watched this last night, I thought, is there really no paper trail on Rob Graves before 1996? And I looked it up, and it's very easy to find a paper trail on Rob Graves. In fact, you can find out that where he graduated from high school, and you can find out where he went to college. He went to IU, and you can find all this stuff out about him. You can find out things about his family. I mean, it's really easy to do a paper trail on Rob Graves in Indianapolis. Number one. Number two, I met the man in person, okay? It's on my vlog. You can see him. He's about the same height as I am. I'm 5'10", maybe 5'10 and a half with good shoes. Herb Baumeister was very tall. There's no way they're not anywhere near the same height at all. They don't even, if you look at them in person, they don't even look similar whatsoever in person. I met the man, okay? I mean, when I have met so many people. I used to work with a woman who her parents had a lake house right next to the Baumeister lake house, and she would say, I knew long before this, he was so bizarre. This is a woman I was very close with that I worked with. And I'd say, so you knew him? She's like, oh, we knew him well. Because he would come out in his yard. He never wore short sleeve shirts. He always wore long sleeve shirts, even in the heat of summer. Always had khaki pants on. He was really bizarre. She was like, he would just kind of like wave. And she was like, we always knew he was weird, but we obviously didn't know he was a serial killer. And I used to say to her, like, what did you think? She's like, he's so tall and like lanky. That does not describe Rob Graves, okay, at all. Like, I can see him in the entryway. I can see him walking in his kitchen. My friend Melissa was like, can we order pizza when we went over there? And he's like laughing with her, and he's showing us all the stuff. I mean, I was with him for hours that night. Like, and I know a lot of people that, like, when I tell them I went out there and they're like, oh, well, I know Rob Graves from this, or I knew Rob Graves long before they lived at Fox. A lot of people know him here in town. So I don't know about a paper trail, which I was able to find in 24 hours, okay? Well, less than that. I found it in 10 minutes, Google searching the man. But in Indianapolis, he's a well-known man. Do I think that there is possibly some speculation about something since that case has happened and what his obsession and his interest is in with Herb Baumeister? Oh, 100%. I think that Rob Graves has an obsessive interest in the Fox Hollow case in a way that, like, when I watched a documentary, one of the things that was really interesting to me was that when Mark Goodyear came up, Mark Goodyear, like, hugged his wife, who stayed upstairs the whole time we were there. We never even met her, and acted like they had been friends. When we went out there for the paranormal investigation, Rob Graves told us, he said, The guy that was the sole survivor, because he hadn't come out at that point and said he was the boyfriend, the sole survivor of her Baumeister, and he said Mark Goodyear, because I checked with my friends Aaron and Melissa, and both of them were like, yeah, he did say that. He came out and said that Mark was going to maybe stop by, that he stops by a lot and visits Fox Hollow Farms, which that's bizarre, okay? So is there some connection with Mark Graves or with Rob Graves and Mark Goodyear? 100%, I believe that. What is the connection? I don't know. Is it speculative? I have a lot of speculations about this case. But is Herb Baumeister Rob Graves? 100% not. There's no way. They don't even physically look alike. When you meet the man in person, and I met Rob Graves in person. There's nothing about him. He doesn't move like Herb Baumeister. He doesn't talk like Herb Baumeister. They're not even the same height. They don't look the same. I mean, there's nothing about him, okay? Not to mention that Rob Graves has been married for a very long time, has kids. I mean, he's a very well-known businessman in Indianapolis. So there's no way, I mean, and it was easy to find a paper trail that quickly if you just did a research on him, you know? So, yes, this is what I think about it, because people keep on asking me, what do I think? Do I think that Rob Graves could be Herb Baumeister? 100% not. There's no way. There's absolutely no way. Herb Baumeister died in Canada. We know that, okay? Are there speculations about that death and the weirdness of that death? Absolutely, 100%. There's a lot of unanswered questions about that. But I've talked to people directly that when the body was brought back here, they saw the body of Herb Baumeister. These are not people that are sketchy. These are people that are on the up and up. So I know that for a fact. Do I believe that Herb Baumeister decided to take over all of this? No, at all. I don't even believe that. Do I believe that that place is so weird that you could be possessed by the energy of Herb Baumeister? Maybe. I don't know. Like when we were there, our friends were like, I said, I don't even believe they live here. Because it was so dusty that like we would walk around and Rob Graves would be like, so that was one of the things that was weird in the documentary. And I will say this is that Rob said he got on this murder memorabilia site, which to anybody that's into true crime, like that's a big no-no. Like if you respect the victims, you don't buy shit on those murder memorabilia sites. I think he's selling stuff over there. I do think that Rob Graves is selling stuff on those murder memorabilia sites. That's one of the speculations I have. But when he would point to stuff and he'd say, that's the actual, and you can go back in videos from years before I even did it, or after I did the paranormal investigation. He told us that the hose that they had in the pool was the actual hose that Herb Baumeister used to strangle his victims. I even said, why would the police not take it? I think we talked about it at the end of my vlog that I did. But he would point to something and go, those are the same salt and paper shakers that Julie and Herb had in the house when they lived here. That's the same curio cabinet they had. That's the same this. I mean, it was like, and there would be like a pound of dust around it. I'm like, these people don't even live here. I don't believe they live here. The only place that looked lived in was the upstairs apartment that apparently his sons lived in, or he lived in, or whatever, that had like a pot bowl sitting on it, and I don't know, like a couple tapes, like tape cassettes, and it just looked like that was the only place that lived in it. I don't know where they live in that house, but I can tell you they don't live in the master bedroom, because that place, I mean, it looked like he threw some underwear on the ground just to make it look like he lived there, but it didn't look like anybody lived in those areas, those living spaces. The bed looked like it hadn't been touched in years. The bathrooms looked like there was literally dust on the counters of it was so weird. It was like they just did it for these paranormal investigations. Little did I know, because he said at that time that like they don't ever do, I don't know where I'm at on time, hold on a second. He said at the time that they hardly ever do those investigations, which we did pay $20 a person to do that investigation. They had to charge us because it's an inconvenience. He was very nice. Rob Graves was very nice for that whole thing. Strange. Not as strange as he was in the documentary. I mean, he's gotten stranger. Like, when I watched the documentary, the things that were weird to me was that he was so protective of Mark Goodyear. And I was like, that's so weird, especially when you told us that Mark Goodyear was going to, possibly come to visit and things like that. So I have a lot of speculations about Rob Graves. What his interest is in this case, his obsessiveness about it. I have an interest because I was part of the community that was taken up, and I was like living it in real time at that time. That's always been my interest in the case. Rob Graves, like I said, he told us that they were going to like do tours. This is going to stop in a second. Hold on. Okay. He told us that they wanted to do tours. He wanted to write a book. They were hoping to maybe do a documentary at that time, things like that. So I don't know if that was his end plan and they live somewhere else. I have no idea about it. I do know that the one place we did not go was like the stables that they had turned into offices, but you could see in the windows and they were beautifully decorated. So I don't know if it's like a carriage house now. I don't know if they lived there in the carriage house because it was beautifully decorated. The house was weird. It was like there was dust everywhere. It just was bizarre. So anyway, do I think that that Rob Graves has a weird obsession, and I don't really know, like his involvement with Mark Goodyear as of today? 100%. Do I think that her Baumeister is Rob Graves? 100% no. There's absolutely no way. And this is the problem with this, okay? Like I said, I love conspiracy theories. I love all this. I'm only reacting to this because I've gotten so many people that have asked me what I thought about this. I love talking about conspiracy theories. The problem is, if the conspiracy theories are coming in the way of the real story being told, okay? I mean, we're talking about real victims. We're talking about real men whose lives were taken, some that have never been identified, most that have never been identified. We're not even talking about the killings of the I-70 killer that her Baumeister allegedly was, that some of those men we don't even, till this day, I mean, it's been 30 years, we don't know who these people were, and probably never will know who those people were. And, you know, and there was a possibility that the killings went on, if her Baumeister was involved with a group of people, that the killings went on after. That's a speculation that I've heard a lot about, that the killings continued after her Baumeister passed away and they just changed the way that they changed. I'm not getting into that today in this video, but I've heard a lot about that. So if that's the case, then I don't know, other than, like, this is really fun to talk about, but is it really fun to talk about when you're talking about victims? That her Baumeister is Rob Graves, and that's why Rob Graves lives in Fox Hollow Farm. I don't know what really, like, why we're making a 10-part series on this, okay? And contacting a coroner that's busy as shit anyway, trying to get to the bottom of this case and only has so many years in office to do it. Like, maybe, okay, with a 10-minute Google search, look up Rob Graves' history, because I did, and you can go to anything online and see where he went to high school. I mean, the high school that he graduated from is literally 10 minutes from me. I know people that went to that high school that are my age. I called up one of them and I said, did you remember Rob Graves from high school? And they're like, oh yeah, absolutely, the guy that lives at Fox Hollow Farms. And I said, so you went to high school with him? He's like, oh yeah. So, like, I mean, it doesn't take long, and I don't know, if you need a source in Indianapolis, Birdie, I can be your source. But to put that stuff out there, the speculation, for TikTok, I think it's fun. I think it's fun to have these speculations. But when you're talking about coming in the way of an active investigation, which this is, it's an active and open investigation, and the main goal is, and I think that anybody that is interested in true crime, I do believe this about him, and I believe it about anybody else, really cares about the victims. I think that's really the end game, right? And so, yeah, it's fun to have speculative stories and have conspiracies and do all this kind of stuff. And is there a paranormal element to Fox Hollow Farm? There's no way to go out there and not feel that there is. I mean, there's just something weird about that property, period, you know? There's just so much that is around this case that surrounds it. But I think that the end goal for all of us should be to get to the bottom of this case and to give these families and to obviously give the victims the justice they deserve and to have their stories told and to be able to give their loved ones some closure. And, you know, and also I think to honor a community of people, of gay men, of the LGBTQI plus community, because it wasn't just gay men. Gay men were the ones that were being, you know, killed at that time. But you're talking about lesbians that were our friends that were protecting us. This is also in the heels of the AIDS, the height of the AIDS crisis, you know, and you're talking about bisexual people that people didn't understand what that meant at that time, you know. Trans people at the same time were being killed and nobody cared about that. We were and still don't care about that, you know. Thousands of people, trans people are killed, especially trans women of color are killed in the United States every single day, and nobody cares. Nobody's paying attention to that. We're an entire community of people that we have had to defend ourselves against judgment for years and years and years and years and years. And one of the reasons why I bring that up is because if that weren't the case, okay, as a marginalized community, then this case would never have happened the way that it did, because it would have got caught a lot quicker, okay? And so if we allow that judgment to continue in 2025, 2026, 2027, then we're breeding ground for another serial killer being able to kill another marginalized community. Maybe next time it won't be the LGBTQI plus community. Maybe it will be another judged marginalized community. And I just don't want to sit back and see that happen again. But no, I do not believe that Rob Graves is her Baumeister. So anyway, let me know what you thought about all that in the comment section below. I love you guys, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye.